Can you hear me if I use this?
Yes.
Yeah. My name has been pronounced in so many different ways, I don't even know how my name goes. It feels like a lifetime ago when I was preaching in the middle of an aisle in a church and David was playing the keyboard. So it's good to be with family again. Sylvia, I've been many times in different places, and it's good to see you. It's good to be with friends and family. Even members of my church are here, so that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And I think God does things in ways that oftentimes we don't understand. When Mercy called me about speaking in this place and sharing Jesus with you today, usually our preaching schedule is set 6 months ahead. It just happened the last week I finished the series and I wasn't preaching today. So I asked my associate if I could come and preach. And I think God works things in a way that we can all be blessed and share a blessing. So thanks for allowing me to be here today to share Jesus with you. Let's move. Heavenly Father, we are so glad that you are our God, and Lord, we pray that at this moment when we'll open your word, that it is the voice of Jesus that speaks to us. Speak to our mind, speak to our heart. Lord, let it be Jesus, the only voice we hear. In his name we pray. Amen. Perhaps you heard that story of that young pastor who had just graduated from the seminary, and he was excited to share his first sermon at his first congregation. And he was expecting to go to his church and preach his sermon, and he was working on it for days, but he was struggling preparing one part of the sermon, and that was the introduction. So as he's thinking and thinking and thinking, he received the mail, and he's going through the mail, and right there, in that section of the mail that we call junk, he found a flyer, an advertisement for a local church that was hosting a series of evangelism with a very famous preacher. So he said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over there, and I'm going to listen to this experienced preacher and get some ideas for myself. So this young pastor went to that church in a town near his house, and as he sits in the back, he began to listen to that experienced evangelist. And you know how it goes with experienced evangelists. They have a way of holding the pulpit, of speaking from behind. And this famous evangelist grabbed the pulpit, looked at the congregation, and said, the most passionate, the most caring, and the most loving kiss that I've ever had is being with a woman that is not my wife. At that moment, the congregation went, oh. And then after a pause, with a smile, he said, it was my mother. And everybody were like, oh, that's so cute. The young pastor sitting in the back said, that's perfect. That's what I need for my sermon. So he went back to his house. He was ready to preach that Sabbath morning. The president of the conference came to his church, introduced him to his new congregation. And when it was his time to preach, this young pastor grabbed the pulpit and said, the most passionate, the most caring, and the most loving kiss that I've ever had is being with a woman that is not my wife. Now the congregation is looking at him, his first Sabbath, and he's already with these shenanigans. The pause got a little longer than normal, and a drop of sweat began to run down his face. And he said, but for the life of mine, I can't remember who she was. Our problem as Christians is that we forget our identity. We forget who we are. And we try to play the role that belongs to someone else. That is not a new thing. In fact, it's been around for ages. But I believe that in order for us to experience the life that God has prepared for us to the fullest, we need to first be aware of who we are. So if you come with me to the book of Genesis, chapter 6, let's find some principles that the Word of God has for us so that we can experience to the fullest our identity and how God intended it to be. So Genesis chapter 6. Is it just me or is it worrying? I feel like that young pastor. So Genesis chapter 6. In my church, I'm used to giving the notes for the message in the bulletin for all the people. And I was about to say, get your notes out, but I forgot that this is not good. Genesis chapter 6, verse 1. When human beings began to increase in number, I read from the NIV, on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans, or men, were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Now, before we go on in this story, we have to set the framework of how this story develops. And as you see in this first text, there is an identification of two groups. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. There is I'm going to need a few more packets. There's an identification of two groups. The first group says that is the sons of God. You see that?
Yes.
Okay, I'm used to my congregation to repeat to me, so you need to work with me. Okay, so you see that?
Yes.
All right, that's much better. And the other group is the daughters of men. Now, so the first question and the logical question is, who are the sons of God and who are the daughters of men? I do believe that the Bible always gives us the answers to the questions that it presents. And the best answer comes from the gospel in Matthew chapter 12. Don't lose Genesis. Jesus is teaching in a house. And as he's teaching in a house, the house is, as usual, packed with people who want to hear Jesus, who want to be healed by Jesus, who want to experience the presence of Jesus. So there's no room for anyone else. But outside the door, there is a knock. And at the door is Mary, the mother of Jesus, and his brothers. And when one of the disciples comes to the door and opens it, he finds Mary, and Mary, with the authority of a mother, of someone who has connections, she says, tell Jesus that his mother and his siblings are here. So I can picture one of the disciples walking, like when the pastor is at the front and there's a message that he needs to hear, and a deacon slowly comes by to give him a note or something like that. I picture one of the disciples coming to Jesus in the middle of his sermon, and he hands him a note. Your mom and your brothers are here. Jesus looks at the note and continues to preach. And he says, in verse 50, by the way, my mother and my brothers are those who do the will of my Father in heaven. So Jesus gives us the answer. The sons and daughters of God are those who do the will of the Father, the will of God. So the sons and daughters of men are those who don't. It's very simple. Let's go back to Genesis, verse 4. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward. When the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them, they were the heroes of old, men of renown. Now there's another group. These are the Nephilim. Nephilim is plural in Hebrew for the big ones or the tall ones. We have a term for that today. Giants. Something interesting that happened to me a while back is that a group of young people from my church invited me to go to the Staples Center to watch the Lakers. And that was the only way that I could go because the tickets are super expensive. So they told me, Pastor, you want to come with us? We're going to see the Lakers. And back then the team was formed but Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, Karl Malone, Gary Payton, and another guy who I don't remember. So we got there early, and we got those seats that you need an oxygen mask to be able to survive. We were way up there, and we were watching the game being prepared, and the players coming into the court. And one of the things that happened just caught my attention incredibly. And it was Karl Malone walking onto the court. Karl Malone, he's only 6'9", but it wasn't his height that caught my attention. It was the size of his arms. His arms were like my legs, massive. So Karl Malone is walking there, and he's walking on the court and grabbing a ball, and the shirt that he was wearing, the sweater, the warm-up that he was using, was about to burst every time he bent his arms because his biceps were just huge. And after him, with a slower pace, long stride, you know who that was? That was Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal is 7'2". And when he stood next to Karl Malone looked tiny. But it wasn't the arms of Shaq that attracted me, which his arms were like my waist. It was the size of his hand. His hand was obviously proportional to his body. But next to the other ones, his head was massive. And that got me to think about something. Experts believe that we only use, an average, between 7 and 12% of our brain capacity today. And let me share something with you, and we can have it on the screen, the first book. The book Spiritual Gifts by Ellen White says that those who lived before the flood, remember, Noah is living before the flood, come forth with their giant-like stature, more than twice as tall as the men now living upon the earth. More than twice as tall. Now let me ask you a question. You seem like a very smart group. Let me ask you. Do you know the average height of the American man today? It's not 6 feet. You're close. It's 5'9". 5'9". The average height of an American man is 5'9". Now, let's double that. How high is that? And I got you into trouble. It's summer. We don't think in summer, school. Now, it's 11'6". And if it's more than twice, let's be generous and let's give them 6 inches to make it even 12 feet. So, what this book is telling us is that the people who lived during the time of Noah, they were 12 feet high. Now, let's go to the next slide. Now, you can see the average man compared to a pre-flood individual. Now, the basketball rim in the NBA is only 10 feet tall. So the men of the pre-flood times, they were 2 feet above the basketball rim. Now, bear with me. How big do you think their heads were? Okay, keep that in mind for a second. Verse 5. Then the Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil at all times. Now, did I tell you how much of the brain capacity we use today? 7 to 12%. At the time of the flood, Ellen Joy says that they were able to use all of their brain capacity. Can you imagine, with that size of brain, being able to use all their brain capacity only for evil? Can you imagine that? Well, probably not, because we only use 7 to 12%. But these people So this is what verse 6 says. Then the Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. Now, let's understand something, because this is very interesting theologically. When it says that God regretted it, the regret of God is very different than our regret. See, our regret occurs after the fact. We do it, and then we feel bad. Or maybe we felt bad because we got caught. The regret of God works different. He sees the consequences of evil before they occur. Are you with me? So what God is looking at is, okay, these guys are so evil that the world is going to be horrible. So before that happens, I have to do something about it. That is how God's regret works. So God regretted that situation with this man whose thoughts had been completely driven to evil. Verse 3, then the Lord said, my spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal. Their days will be 120 years. Remember how long Adam lived? 930 years. So by this time, longevity of humans has decreased. We could ask one simple question with a clear answer. What has been the cause of the decrease of longevity of humans? Sin. Sin. That has been the cause. Sin. Think about it for a second. If, as it was referenced earlier for the offerings, if Eve and Adam had not sinned, it would be eternal. Sin caused longevity in humanity to decrease. At this moment in the flood, 2,000 years later, it's sin that causes the longevity of humans to decrease. Verse 8. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. This is the most powerful text in this chapter. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Was Noah perfect? No. But see, this is one of the things that God does. That even though we are simple, even though we are imperfect, God always finds something in us that is worthy to be redeemable. That is the reason why you and I are here today. Because God saw in us, He found something that was worthy to be redeemable. Because His grace, His hesed, that's the Hebrew word, hesed, is limitless. And He always finds something in every individual that is worthy to be redeemable. It's His love, translated in the New Testament, love, hesed, that allows Him to not look at the sin in humanity, but to look at what can be redeemed. Now it gets interesting. Verse 14. So God speaks to Noah, and He tells him something very, very interesting. Verse 14. So Noah, make yourself an ark of cypress wood, make rooms in it, and coat it with pitch inside and out. Now, today we have an advantage because we know what an ark is. We've seen the pictures, we played with the little boats, we know exactly what it is. But in the time of Noah, when God speaks to him, the Bible tells us that it had not rained on the earth. So, think about this. God is asking Noah to do something that has never been done before for an event that had never occurred before. So I can't imagine God is speaking to Noah. Noah, I want you to make a boat. And Noah's like, yeah. What's a boat? He hadn't seen that episode on Discovery Channel. Or how things work. And God is telling them, build a boat because you know what? It's going to rain. What's rain? God is asking Noah to do something that he'd never seen for an event that has never happened before. This is a testament, actually, to their brain capacity. Because see, in 3 verses, God explains to Noah exactly what to do, how to do it, and what for. Later on, God asked another person, another man, to build another ark. Moses. And he not only gives them 3 verses, he gives them 17 chapters with description, measurements, the materials, he gives them help, and he shows them a model. But for Noah, he gives them 3 verses. You know, God oftentimes will ask us to do things that don't make sense. God will ask you to do something for the life experience that he wants you to live. He asks you to do something that at the time will not make sense. See, I'm an only child. I don't have siblings. And that explains a lot of things, right? And one of the things that happened to me is that when I met my wife, I was studying computer information systems. That was my thing. I love computers. That was my career. That was my profession. And at the church where I grew up, the Temple City Spanish Church is here down the street, Rogelio. We had a lot of youth in that church. We used to go to youth camps together, and it was a lot of youth. I remember. And the pastor who we had at the time, he tried to start something that we didn't have before, and that was something that is very popular now, youth Sabbath, where that day is led by the youth, young person preaches. But we had one obstacle, that we did not have a youth pastor. So the pastor said, you know, I'm going to ask some of you to preach on youth Sabbath. By definition, I was a nerd. I was a computer guy, not a preacher. But I was one of the 3 guys that the pastor asked to preach. So I was the 3rd one in the schedule. So one preached, another one was my cousin, and then I preached. And it started well until like a few months into it, I ended up being the only one preaching. So one summer, a day like today, I preached. And you know how it goes, that after the sermon, the speaker goes out to the front door and shakes hands with people and, you know, happy Sabbath and whatnot. So I'm there, and the pastor's next to me, and he said, you know, Rogelio, you should study theology. I'm like, no. You know, Pastor, I'm going to graduate in December. I'm set. I was already dating my wife. I had just bought a brand new car. I was working for the city of Pasadena. Once I graduate, I'll have a job, you know. I'm good. He said, think about it. So I went home after the socials. We used to play volleyball at church at night. I went home, and I'm laying on my bed looking at the ceiling and thinking, Pastor Paquini, that sounds funny. So I said, well, I came to try. So I applied to 3 universities. One was La Universidad de Plata in Argentina. To the day, let me tell you why I applied to that school. My wife is from Argentina. I figure if I go there, maybe she goes with me. But to the day, they haven't responded. If you think that was bad, the second university that I applied for was La Sierra. They accepted me for the master's program, not for undergrad. And I applied for a 3rd university, Universidad de Montemorelos in Mexico. It was towards the end of the summer. I was working, like I said, from the city of Pasadena, and when I came back home, my mom had the phone in her hand. This is before cell phones, guys. So my mom said, there's a call for you. And she hands me the phone. It was a modern phone. It was wireless. Remember those that you had to pull out the antenna? Yeah. So she handed me the phone, and I responded. There was a deep voice on the other side that said, Rogelio, Paquini? I said, yeah. He said, this is Professor Carpintero from Montemorelos, and I'm in charge of recruiting. And I'm looking at your application, and we just need some documentation from you, and we're ready to go for you to start in August. I'm like, I'm studying here, and I'll be graduating in December. I can't go until I graduate. And I'm thinking, if I don't like it, I want to have something to just fall back on. Because I need it. And he said, well, if you study theology, as it says in your application, you need to take Greek 1, Greek 2, History 1, History 2. You can't take 2 without taking 1. But let me find out. I'll speak to the dean. So I was ready to go in the shower, and not even 10 minutes passed, and the phone rings again, and my mom is, son, it's for you. And again, Rogelio, Paquini. Yeah? It's like, well, I spoke to the dean, and he said that it's okay. We'll wait for you in January. I'm like, okay, this is for reals now. I'm going to make the story very short. Before that January, I got a scholarship that I didn't even apply for. My last year, a doctor said, I see that God is calling you to do this. We're going to pay for your whole year, so you just dedicate to your studies and you don't have to work. God has done some amazing things in my life so that I can get to work for Him doing this. I love computers, but there's nothing that makes me happier and more on purpose than to be able to share the Word of God. Amen. At the time, it didn't make sense. What are you talking about, God? But see, God will ask you at times, maybe all the time, to do things that at first they don't make sense. But when you look back, you realize it makes all the sense in the world. So Noah now is asked to do something that didn't make sense. And not just that. See, he built the boat, and as he's building it, he's preaching, and he's telling people, hey guys, it's going to rain. You see how difficult it was for Noah? It's going to rain. Get in the boat. And probably people were thinking, well, that's a not-looking building. But see, when it doesn't make sense for us, when we trust on God, the things that didn't make sense at all make all the sense in the world. Because when that voice dropped upon you, people were, oh, I get it now. But it was too late. It was too late. Verse 18. God speaks again to Noah and says, but I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your son's wife with you. So I was reading this text. I thought about my family. I told you I was an only child, right? But see, my dad is the second of 9. So we are a large family. Just not long ago, we celebrated my grandmother's 94th birthday, and not everybody was there, and we just didn't fit in the house. We need a local community center to gather when we're all together, because there's a lot. So I think that if I had been Noah at that particular moment, when God tells him, it's going to be for you, your wife, and your sons and their wives, We said, hey, how about my mom? How about my grandma? My cousin, well, he can stay, but how about my, you know? But see, this is the thing. When God has a plan for you, that plan is only for you. God is telling Noah, I will establish my covenant with you. This is for you. See, what God does is that He's made every single one of us with a set of skills, set of abilities, set of talents, with a spiritual shape that is unique to us. And what God has designed us for is only for us. That thing that He wants you to accomplish is only for you. No one else can do it. Because that is your task, in your time, in your generation. Because God establishes His covenant with individuals. With individuals. And we've seen it through history, we've seen it through the Bible, that God works individually. He loves all people, but He works with individuals. According to our time, according to our place, and according to our circumstances. So God is telling Noah, this is between you and me. Verse 22. Noah did everything just as God commanded. Noah did everything. You know, in Hebrew, what everything means? Everything. All. Everything. See, Noah didn't try to compromise. Well, I'll do this, but this other thing, I don't know. No. Noah did everything according to the way that God had commanded. Did you watch fireworks before July? Yeah. Did you go to the beach? I went to the beach the 5th of July. And I found something really, really interesting. Let me show you a picture. You want to see a picture? Let's show the picture. This beautiful boat. It's a 38-footer on Corona del Mar Beach. But can you see what's wrong with it? It's on the beach. It's on the sand. It's not on the water. So as we were going down, if you've ever been to Corona del Mar, there's a little driveway that you go down, that you drive down to the parking lot. And as we were driving down, thinking, okay, that looks weird. Something's wrong with that. You know, it's like Sesame Street, those shows that, what's wrong with this picture? Kind of thing. What's wrong with that boat? Later we realized that the lifeguards were trying to get people off the boat. They put cones around it and stuff. But I'm thinking, when God comes to us, and we don't do everything according to what He has commanded. We're beautiful boats, luxurious, but we're in the wrong place. We're in the sand and the ocean. So it is my prayer today that we become the people that God intended us to be. That we don't try to be who we are not, but we become the men and the women that become truly sons and daughters